Okay, we should be live. People of YouTube, let me know when you can hear us. The agenda is in the chat. Nothing crazy on here. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, testing and release updates. There's an ongoing effort by Lakshman and Proto to turn Rumor into chain tests. They can maybe give us an update in a minute. In terms of release, I have a pending release V0.12.2, which I said I'd get out by yesterday, and I'm working on getting out today. There's a couple of very minor PRs still going into it, and nothing crazy. Backwards compatible. Generally, some clarifications and fixes primarily in the gossip conditions section of the PDP spec. So we'll release that. Apparently in V0.12.1 there were something like 4 attester slashing tests that were not published, and I think funny enough these were found in fuzzing. I think Nimbus maybe had the issue, like an index out of bounds error or something. So we do have tests for this, and they will be released in V0.12.2. Proto or Lakshman, do you want to give any update on your end?
Sure. Here.
Yes.
So for chain testing, I've been busy with testnet instead, with more testnet tooling, deposit tooling, and like spinning up or automating the deployment of larger testnets. So it's not been there's not enough. I didn't have enough time to continue on the chain testing effort.
Yep. Understood.
Yeah, just a small update from me, kind of prompted by, I think there was a recent case where it was found that there was like a DOS vector in Gossip if you proposed blocks that were not the descendant of a known finalized block or something like that. And so I've been kind of doing a deep dive on other possible kind of holes in Gossip validation that we can use to kind of like prevent other DOS vectors. And hopefully I'll have that put together in an issue or something soon.
Cool. Thank you, Lakshman. Okay, we're going to move on to testnets. As you've hopefully seen, there are 3 very small attack nets up. They're all single client. They're 4 nodes each. There are 128 validators on each of those networks. There's a repo that we posted that kind of shows the rules and shows the bounties and things. I know Johnny's been getting his hands dirty, and hopefully others on this call or people on listening on the call might be interested. The plan is to ramp these up over the coming weeks to make them larger and to put some more interesting bounties out there. So white hat hackers, please come break some shit. Okay, any questions on the attack nets as they stand now, or maybe where they're going?
Maybe something to emphasize is that right now it's your best chance to try and find easy DOS vectors. I think clients are not as far along yet. The testnet is small and it's single client. As we go towards these like shared client testnets, it's much harder to get the testnet down. But at the same time, it opens up this new attack vector of splitting the network.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, to be quite frank to anyone listening to this call, DOSing is viable, especially in a 4-node network, and probably cheaper than the bounty. So someone should do it. Okay, moving on. CoinDesk, I think, announced this yesterday. Afri, do you want to talk about the coming testnet?
Yeah, sure. I have a couple of things to talk about. I planned to talk about Altona a little bit, but I can also go on with Medasha.
Yeah, you can start with Altona.
Okay, yes, it's a quick update. So I was on vacation when Altona launched, and I returned last week, finding this network in almost perfect conditions. I'm not aware of any major hiccups yet. The liveliness is pretty good. I know there are some slashing events being investigated, but I didn't follow too closely. I used the chance last week to repeat the client benchmarks. In case you didn't see yet, I profiled all four Genesis Valley clients, Lighthouse, Prism, Teco, and Nimbus, and compared their high-level performance metrics. And I published a small report on that. And the given stability on Altona led us to conclude that we want to do a very similar testnet, but with a public launch. And this is what we prepared the last couple of days, and someone suggested calling it Medasha. Medasha will target the version 0.12.2 spec that is close to be released. But it does not contain any breaking changes as far as I know. So we are probably good to go to have client releases for this very soon. The spec is on GitHub, on the girly GitHub. What else is important? It contains a mainnet spec. So we will have kind of a public launch. I don't know if you want to add some comments on that, like how people are being onboarded. Did you publish a blog post yet, Danny?
Yes, I just put out a blog post this morning that linked to some of the relevant stuff and also linked to the at least the 4 clients that we know will have Genesis validators and encourage people to try them out. We also have a imminent release of the associated validator launchpad, which is like an educational deposit UI that expect to go live essentially in the next 24 hours, certainly by Monday, which if people are not familiar with this process and haven't tried out testnets before, this should be like a good portal to get started and learn about what's going on.
Right, so the minimum Genesis time for Medasha is August the 4th at 1 p.m. UTC in case we have enough deposits till then. Otherwise, it will happen probably 48 hours after the last deposit. So we need 16,000 deposits, right?
Right, so we'll know that Sunday at 1 p.m. UTC if the Tuesday 1 p.m. UTC will be met, and otherwise we'll be kind of just watching. Oh, sorry, Donkard, I accidentally muted you right when you started talking. Sincere apologies.
No worries. So maybe one input for this testnet. I mean, it would be great if we try to track 100% of the slashings, like basically open an issue for each slashing that happens and make sure that we know exactly what happened. Because I feel like when we launch, this is like a catastrophic failure for those who've actually staked. So so if we find these issues now, we shouldn't just sweep them under the carpet.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I'm glad you brought it up on Altona, the ones that were unknown there. Where should we track these? Any suggestion?
under the Eth2 client's organization, we can open up a repository. I believe we already have one with UX. We can make issues there for slashings, maybe.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it would be great if we could have every slashing recorded just to make sure that they're all detected properly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, maybe in that repo we could have like we could have a table where everyone records which validators they run, so that makes it easy to then contact them and ask them, hey, what happened? Can you have a look at the logs? For those who are happy to have that info public.
Yeah, I'll open up the multi-client repo and figure out a good spot for all that. Thank you, Doncred. Yeah, we've definitely been a little bit light on the like, oh, there's a slashing, but that's certainly things that we want to very much avoid in mainnet. And I imagine 99% are just going to be UX failures or potentially education failures. Running your keys in multiple places, thinking that that's a good idea, which is also maybe a UX failure because you should be warned.
Could clients detect that? Could your clients see like, hey, I see an attestation in my name, but my local store doesn't say that I signed it. I should probably inform the user of that rather than run.
For slashing protection, you need to keep a local database of what you signed. So if you see something signed with your public key, but it's not local, it means that either you move computer or someone is using the same key.
Exactly, but I expect that is like that you may want to run it on another computer, or you didn't notice that you made a copy of your directory or so. I expect that will be the reason for most slashing realistically. So if the client automatically detects that, like it just has to scan, say like check the latest attestation and see if that's the same as your local store says, then just stop basically.
Right, you could have a validator client query, okay, given these are the attestations I know about, it could query a node and ask if there's unknowns, which could be a red flag. That might be a good endpoint.
We kind of support that by connecting the validator client to the slasher, since the slasher maintains a whole database of everything made and everything it sees. But yeah, that'd be a lot extra
that's expensive.
running compared to a normal beacon node.
Also, there might be a race condition where, let's say, you have two clients and they try to vote both and they are not aware of each other, and then both deactivate themselves, and because they realize late that they both voted for the same attestation.
Right. I mean, this protection is not perfect, of course. I'm just saying it could probably catch most cases. It doesn't catch the case where you accidentally start both at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Ivan does bring up a good point, though, that it is, for a normal beacon node, it's probably a very expensive query. There is these like specialized slashers being written, which Prism has one, Lighthouse is working on one, which creates an indexed, like a more indexed database of the attestations, but at that point also, at least for now, it was like a pretty expensive operation to run.
Wait, but doesn't the beacon node know the latest attestation that each validator signed?
Yes,
for LND
that would be
choice.
Yeah, that would be
like that's maybe like an 80-20 to just look at that and see if that's the same as your store says.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that could be like a validator sanity check startup endpoint, which could, I think, capture a lot of the common errors there. You're right. If we want a
maybe
next
it should
step
even
on
be
that,
part of the validator API.
Right, I was going to say the next step on that, I think, would be to think about it a little bit more and propose an endpoint on the Eth2.0 APIs repo.
Okay, I'll make an issue.
Thank you.
So why not as a like in the current endpoint, like when you send back a response with an attestation as a validator, you send along a reference to the previous attestation.
What was that? Sorry, Proto.
Sorry for background noise. So why not send a reference to the previous attestation along with the attestation you signed?
Meaning that then the node sanity checks that what it has for your previous attestation is valid?
But the node doesn't just need to check that that previous attestation exists. It needs to check that that was the last attestation it has from that validator.
Exactly. That's like try and avoid an extra call and just make it standard practice to check these things.
Does it need an API thing though? I mean, technically in the beacon node receives all the gossip traffic. So if there are two clients running or two things on the network anywhere running, one of them receives an attestation from a particular validator that you know is connected to you. As soon as that validator client creates the attestation and tries to send it, even the beacon node block it if it's seen it already on the gossip network.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted a response from a beacon node could be like a warning and default reject something double as a protection measure. At least with respect to the latest message. Yeah.
Yeah, that would catch probably 80% of everything because if you have two clients running, they will be attesting. Well, the problem is that they'll be attesting at the exact same time. So the race condition that Mario mentioned is kind of likely, but at the same time, both attestations will kind of fly around in the network for a bit as well. So if you're lucky, you'll get both over gossip and you know about it. Like it doesn't need a full historical database.
Once they're both on the network, it's too late. Like then you're dead. So except if they happen to be exactly the same attestation, in which case you wouldn't notice.
Yeah, but you might get it on the network before the validator, you know.
Right. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is if you didn't start them exactly at the same time, but you have one running, you didn't remember that it's running, and you think, oh, I'm going to start my node now. Then that new node would detect, hey, there was an attestation 6 minutes ago, and it wasn't me. So I'm better going to shut down. That's, I guess, what I'm suggesting.
Whereas the like beacon node rejecting if it's seen something for that slot already, it seems like in most of the cases you might not, unless there's like timing issues between your local times.
I mean, I think that doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean that protection could totally be on the beacon node. I think, like it in this case, since the validator node currently doesn't follow the beacon chain, there's no difference in security. So it could be the beacon node doing that check.
Okay, let's take this to an issue. I think the API repo makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Other testnet things. Afri, did you have anything else?
No, not that I'm aware of. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. That's very exciting. Okay, and anything else? Any other questions or comments on testnets before we move on?
Yeah, Danny, what's the expectation on client teams in terms of number of Genesis validators and so forth? There was some discussion, but I didn't see a conclusion.
We were thinking on those four clients, 1,024 validators each, which is ends up being significantly less than 1/3 of the validators, and then leaving a chunk for maybe some at the EF and Afri to run, still equaling less than 1/3 of the assumed 16K, which it might very well be more. So somewhere between probably 1/3 and 1/6 of the Genesis validators. Does that seem reasonable to everyone. You know, a nice backbone, but not able to finalize or really do much other than just be a strong percentage.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, cool. So the 4096, again, that'll be if only minimum Genesis validators are hit. That will be 25% of the validators, and then some of the EF and AFRI will fill in the gap up to about 30%. And other than that, it might be smaller because we could very well have 20, 30,000 validators at Genesis. Okay. Other testnet things. Okay. Moving on to client updates. Let's start with Lodestar.
Hey y'all. So let's see. We're basically finished with Gossip Sub 1.1. We're writing a few more tests to bring it in line with testing with the Go implementation, and we should be releasing this with the latest version of JS P2P 0.29, and that should be here in the next few weeks. We've been adding to our API, and we have minimal ETH2 stats support. We've been trying to do some bigger end-to-end tests to, I guess, make sure that like our node is stable and we can transition between an initial sync and a regular sync scenario. We're kind of all hands on deck trying to get ready for this testnet, and because we'd like to be validating at least in some part, or at least participating in some part, but we also don't want to like break the testnet. So we'll make a call when it gets closer whether or not we're going to be validating, or worst case we'll just spin up some other clients nodes. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're certainly expecting to run some Lodestar nodes, but if you send the signal to try out some validators, I'd love to. Okay, Prism.
Hey everyone. Yeah, from Prism, we've been working on the accounts revamp. So basically, restructuring everything about how key management works, making sure we're compliant with the EIP standards for derived wallets, and also working on also finished up remote signing wallets, so people can basically connect to a remote signing server. That's one of the most requested functionalities in Prism, and we think that our key management was our weakest link in our user experience. So we've been focusing a lot on making it easier for people to use and making sure that it's up to standard. So that's been mostly it. We've been working a lot on fuzzing and finding bugs. We've been using a tool called Cluster Fuzz. Has found a lot of interesting bugs in the code base. So we've been fixing on that. And Preston was the one that pioneered that initiative. Aside from that, just been working a lot on networking improvements, making sure that people don't have unexpected loss of peers or any weird situations. So overall, feeling confident about the new testnet, and that's where we are today.
Great. And how does the Launchpad integration, like if I get keys from Launchpad, can I easily move into Prism at this point?
Yeah, you should be able to. We'll have to try it out. We do implement the key store standard, so just need to make sure there's no the formats all match up properly and nothing is weird. So we'll give it a try very soon. It's updated, right? So we should be able to try it today.
Yes, Carl has a version that he's putting out for Medallia that should be up very soon, and maybe he'll ping you with a link.
Cool, that would be awesome if you guys announce that on the Discord.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'll send you a direct link. Yeah, should all be good.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, Teku.
Yeah, hey. From Teco side, we are still working hard on memory consumption. So while our JVM heap is currently stably small, we are still experiencing native memory leaks. And our main suspect is RocksDB library. So we are currently trying different DB options to eliminate these leaks. Next, so there was lots of peer management improvements, ensuring better subnet coverage, some Sybil resistance from maintaining a minimum number of peers. We randomly selected and initiated the connection to. Also, we almost complete supranational Blast library integration, and it shown preliminary that we will increase our import speed in around 3 times. Also, Teco security assessment RFP is out, and its closing date is 3rd of August. That's it from Teco side.
Great. Thank you, Anton. Trinity.
Hey. So right now our main goal is to get the beacon node syncing to Altona's head. Earlier last week, we finished up some interop work for connecting to the Altona testnet and stuff. Alex finished up fork choice refactor. As of right now, we're just trying to speed things up. Alex had added some logging, I think Monday or Tuesday or something, and found that we're syncing at like 0.2 slots per second. After a few days of just optimizing things, bringing in stuff from the Eth2 fastspec and also speeding up database operations, we're syncing at 13 slots per second. There's still a few issues that we have to work out at around like epoch 256. But yeah, nothing too serious, and hopefully we can get that fixed up pretty soon, and then we'll be syncing to the head within maybe an hour or two.
On
That's it.
epoch 256, was there a consensus error?
It's a mismatch in state on the next block.
Okay.
So yeah.
If you're passing all the consensus tests and you found a consensus error with your client code base, that would potentially lead to a hole in our test vectors, or imply that there's a hole in our test vectors. So if you can document that case, that would be really, really valuable.
Okay. As of right now, I'm not running the state transition for all of the dependent functions through those tests. So
okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's probably
So
not the case.
Gotcha. Okay. But if you or anyone does ever run into that type of case, certainly report it. Thank you, Grant. Okay, do we have anyone from Nethermind? I don't think so. Okay, moving on. Lighthouse.
Hey everyone. So updates from us. I guess the first thing is we've got a new team member on board. His name's Benedict. His GitHub handle is Black Templar. So if you see him, just say hi. I'm sure you'll probably see him around. We've been working on a number of stability improvements. We've also, similar to Prism, been working on improving the key management system. We've kind of been focusing at looking at some of the attestation inclusion rates in Altona to make sure that all of our attestations are getting included in blocks, and we're finding some kind of timing and edge case issues around that, which we're patching and fixing. The attack nets are underway. Johnny found a panic in disk v5, so props to Johnny, which we've fixed. We've also started security hardening our networking infrastructure. And apart from that, we're kind of preparing for the Medea testnet, setting up some internal test nets and running some code to make sure everything's going to be up and running for the testnet when we get there. That's it from us.
Great, thank you, H. And I saw that there is a Launchpad specific PR still up. Is that coming in the pipeline soon?
Yeah, so it's for porting the keys into our format.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we should have that all hopefully sorted before the testnet's ready. We should be testing it. So I think we should be all good on that front.
Great, thank you. And Nimbus.
Hi. So the big news from the past 2 weeks is that we started our audit. I can now announce the name of the teams. We have 3 auditors, Consensus Diligence, Trade of Bits, and NCC. And the idea was just like Eth2 has multiple teams, we have a fresh take on audits, and we have multiple auditors in collaboration to establish a long-term relationship because of the future audit for phase 1, phase 2. And it's separated into 3 phases, 2 weeks of audits and then 2 to 3 weeks of fixes. 3 phases being networking, the beacon core, and the validator core. And this was started 2 weeks ago and will go on for a couple of months. Otherwise, we've been working on the beacon core on reducing memory usage. This means smarter caching because we cached too much in the past, and now we should be below Lighthouse. We have also been working on sync speed. The current speed is still not yet satisfactory, but it's one of our priorities. On the networking side, for those of you that run Nimbus on Altona, the main issue we have is that attestations are not properly propagated, and this is an issue on Gossip. We're working on this, and we have several improvements like better handling of stale connections and also disk V5 fixes. On the beacon node and validator split, we had several updates in the past months, but we were struggling with finalization issues that are being fixed right now. And on the cryptography front, we updated to the latest EIP 2333. We have now a wallet that can hold withdrawal keys, and we can handle deposits from the Ethereum Launchpad that will be released soon. We also reviewed the BLS backends that exist. We have a BLST wrapped but not enabled, and we also updated Milagro to use Miracle Core from Michael Scott because all the backend was more than a year old, and Miracle Core has a bit more optimization and constant time improvement. Besides, on the documentation and blog post front, we have a new post on the case for running your own validator that you can point your users to. And that's it for us.
Great, thanks, Swami. Your mic had some crazy static, so maybe in the future think of, I don't know, you probably want to look into it. Thank you.
It's the same as one from the past 2 years, so it's probably just my T-shirt. Yeah.
Okay, actually sounds better now. Appreciate it. Okay, I think we got everyone, right? Right. Moving on to research updates. Does anybody have anything they want to get us started with?
Yeah, TXRX, we've been working on some of the AttackNet stuff, and just wanted to reiterate what you were saying earlier. I think if we're the only people working on this, then I don't think we're going to have the level of security long term. Right now, the AttackNets are kind of like the softest pieces. libp2p because we're really not able to produce attestations because we're not validating on it. So yeah, everybody like put a little bit of resource towards attacking the attack nets, because if we don't, they're not going to be secure long term. Mikhail and Guillaume's phase 1 client and connecting to ETH1 is pretty exciting news.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, if y'all even have like, you know, hacker friends that might be interested in this kind of stuff, knock on their door. Cool. Other research updates?
Yes, I can go. Just an update on the Snappy compression from last meeting. I have presented some results that were based on the Ethereum 1 blocks. We were asked to do tests with the Ethereum 2 blocks, so we did that. So we downloaded 19 blocks from the Altona blockchain. We ran the test 10 times for each block, always obtaining the same exact compressed result. Of course, the compression time changes slightly, so we take the average of the 10 runs. And so in overall, we get a compression ratio of 1.6, more or less. And the compression speed is about 911 megabytes per second. This is on a Intel i5 with 4 cores. In comparison to the Eth2.0 results that I presented previously, the compression ratio is lower. Compression ratio of Eth1 was 1.8. Now we have 1.6 for Eth2 blocks. But on the other side, the compression speed is higher. We have 900 versus 500 for Eth1 blocks. If we also compare these results with the standard Snappy compression benchmark that come with the source code already, just to make sure that the numbers we were obtaining were more or less in line with the standard benchmark, and we got about 789 megabytes per second of compression speed for the standard benchmark. So the 900 megabytes per second that we are obtaining for the Eth2 blocks is kind of quite close to it. But this varies from block to block. Some blocks get lower speed depending on the data. The lowest we had was 476 megabytes per second, and the highest we had was about 1,235 megabytes per second. So this, there's a variation, a variance between blocks.
Do you know the compression ratio on the standard benchmark dataset?
I don't have the number right now, but gotcha. I can put it on the Discord. Okay, yeah, cool. I will put. I'm adding a spreadsheet link in the chat so that you can all look at the results, all the data, in case somebody wants to check on that. Mm-hmm. And one more thing I want to mention is that we started a validator node on the Altona network, testnet, and we're running the Lighthouse client and on a Raspberry Pi 4, and we will be testing also other clients. We were trying to test different clients on the same node with the same network to see if we see differences in terms of message received, attestations, etc., etc. I'm putting a link to our validator also in the chat in case somebody wants to take a look. And yeah, that's I think pretty much on my side.
Great, thank you. I wonder. I have my suspicion on the ETH1 blocks being more compressible is probably the 256-bit machine and all of the zeros that are often in those values. But I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense indeed. Yeah.
Cool. Other research updates. Okay, networking. Like I said, the V0.12.2 spec is primarily minor modifications to the networking spec, including some updates to the recommended gossip subparams. So check that out. That'll be out today. Any other networking things?
So not in the immediate release. So there are more gossip sub changes that we're looking into. And in particular, the signature verification slightly differs per clients. In Eth2, we do not use the signature verification, but some clients do validate it if it's present or on some other conditions. And then there are some other related fields in the messages, such as the message origin, sequence number, public key. And these things are propagated by some clients, dropped by some other clients, or randomized by some clients, and fed by some other clients. And we should try and standardize this and try and keep the message minimal. So I've opened a pull request on the Go DP2P repository, which was, I think, merged yesterday. This is more or less provides the options with backwards compatibility for the regular gossip sub behavior, but provides the options for Eth2 to change their behavior and drop these extra fields. And this is not compatible with the current tested behavior, but eventually it like clients to switch to this new behavior. So if you're working on gossip sub, you probably want to look into this. I'll send some links.
Yeah, the kind of TLDR on that is that origin signatures on Gossip Sub, we're not using them, and so they're kind of all over the place in how implementations handle us not using them. And better, we're seeking to just have like an enable disable flag that becomes part of the spec and adds conformance on here, so we don't have any sorts of edge cases there. But if you want to dig deeper, check out the PR that Proto will probably share in the chat. Thanks, Proto. Other networking things? Great. Open spec discussion. And just general open discussion. Anything else anyone has today?
Do we want to talk about when we would want and how we might want to kickstart phase 1 development or implementation?
Yep, why not? My understanding right now is that some clients have done a little bit of due diligence on the spec, some at least looking at it, some doing some prototypes. There's a prototype in Java that actually has a full simulator, and Terrence has done some work on implementing the phase 1 spec and push back into the specs a bit. And then my other understanding of the problem is that the heavy hitting engineering resources are primarily on shipping phase 0. I think at some point in the next couple of months that needs to change, and resources probably need to begin to shift. But beyond that, I mean, Vitalik, what are your particular thoughts here?
Might it make sense for one of the client teams to kind of start pushing ahead into phase 1 earlier? Especially like one whose clients is kind of slower or less ready for kind of phase 0 mainnet development in some way.
one of my feedback is to have some sort of annotated phase one spec starting early, because that is just makes it easier to like onboard new developers and onboard helpers. In our in our Discord, we have had people that have been expressed interest to work on phase one stuff on top of Prism, but unfortunately, it has been pretty hard to like onboard them without some sort of an annotated spec.
Right.
I'm sorry. We're working on a phase one client. We're taking this spec and the Anatoly transpiler is transpiling it, and then we're interfacing with that. We're only calling it a simulator because we're not kind of following the kind of like the slot tick that's expected. I'll drop a link in the chat.
Yeah, good point though, Terrence. I can do a quick version of like the phase 0 for humans to just give like the high level. But there's also been an effort to potentially integrate more annotations directly into the spec. So maybe we'll be a little bit more liberal with writing things into the spec over the coming weeks.
So I'm currently working on some phase one spec modifications, and also I have some notes about the phase one spec, but I personally feel the spec itself could be simplified a lot before let more teams to join the develop. But I mean, just say that I would like to have a write-up after some more simplification be done, and that would be more proper for more teams to join the work, I think.
Anything else on this discussion today? Let's make a note to, in the coming calls, we'll just make a explicit item for phase one to open up discussion, ask questions, make recommendations, and keep people abreast of the phase one developments from there.
Yeah, and I haven't forgotten my own promise to make an annotated phase 0 spec at some point, so we'll probably get to phase 1 after that's done. And now that my other couple of articles have been pushed out yesterday, I can get to that very soon.
Great.
Oh man, I got to finish mine before you get to it, Vitalik.
Ben's annotated spec is the one true spec.
Pressure's on. I don't mind collaborating.
No, the more the merrier.
By the way, as the next release will be coming in maybe this week, the phase one test vector probably will be included in the next release to help the teams to test. But maybe we could just have another branch for this quick, including the phase one only test sooner than the next release.
Yeah, I agree. As soon as the phase one test generation PR is merged, I will create a separate branch in the Eth2.0 specs repo that includes these for anyone that wants them. I know Mikhail wanted to take a look. Terrence probably does too. So I will drop that in the Discord once that's available.
By the way, thanks to Terrence and Michael for help reviewing the phase 1 PRs.
Yeah, absolutely. And both have made substantial contributions to the spec itself at this point. Okay, anything else today before we close? Great. We will plan the next call for 2 weeks from now, which will likely be 2 days after the launch of Medaya. We'll kind of all be chatting a bunch next week, I'm sure. Take care. Thank you. Very excited for this testnet. Appreciate everyone for being here.
Thanks all.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Tony.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.